I am here with Suzanne Waters. Suzanne, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to have you on here because you're you're a fantastic vocalist. I have to say. I mean, I've worked with
Uh-oh.
you belting super high pop songs, and then watched you sing as a soloist with the LA Master Chorale. So you're one of the few people, and I've actually referenced you on the podcast where I talk about the few people I've seen be able to span both classical and pop genres. And although I haven't named you, it's you. You're one of the few people that have done this successfully. I wanted to first ask you, how did you get into session singing?
So let's see. Where would I start? I think it was, I specifically sought it out. I wanted to be the person that was singing the Meow Mix commercials or the person that got the jingle at the beginning of the television shows. I noticed those singers and I cared about them. I noticed radio IDs and tight harmonies, and I was like, who are these people? I want to be them. I never had the desire to be a singer-songwriter or anything like that. I just wanted to do random acting with my voice. So I sought out a composer that was like out of Ohio. I wrote him and I was like, I love your jingles. Could you send me your jingle tracks with no voices on them? And he did. He just adored that I liked his work. And he was like, sure, here you go. And he gave me all the masters without any voice on them. And that became my first demo in 2004. So, but I had nobody to give that demo to. I moved to LA to try to do that, to be a session singer, but I knew no one, and all I knew was I had to pay rent. So I had studied graphic design in school because I was scared to major in music because what would I do with a music major? So I started doing graphic design, and I was majorly distracted by that and just still had the pipe dream of being a session singer someday. And then in 2009, after the economy went crazy, I had been working for a real estate company, and they were going under, and they handed me the box of tissues and the manila envelope, and they said, I'm sorry, we have to let you go. I was devastated at first, but then it was like, well, I did move to LA to be a singer after all, so maybe this is the time to try to do that. And I started pounding the pavement, literally taking other singers to coffee, asking them how they got started, showing up to events and panels and accosting people in the bathrooms. That was like another thing I did. I was like, I'm going to wait till she's done in the stall. And when she goes to the sink, I'm going to just be like, oh, hey, hi. Oh, how did you get started in this? And gosh, I'd sure love to be your personal assistant for a little while, if you don't mind, to learn about your life. And yeah, I did all the things. I really worked hard, but it took me a while to get to that point where I understood what networking was and how to build a career. I just was clueless. So people were nice and helpful, and I started studying with different teachers like yourself, and singing live as much as possible, trying to get the solos as much as possible, inviting people who I knew should probably come see me sing solos. And then word of mouth. And it starts with like, oh, well, maybe we'll sneak you in on this 40-person choir call. And, you get on those gigs, and maybe you only got one or two a year, but they were something. And then you just keep using that to gain momentum. And yeah, that's how I got here today. Just keep on doing a good job and keep building more and more. Now I have composers who contact me directly. They don't have to go through a contractor or anything. They just know that I can record for them in person, or I can record from home. And yeah, that it's great.
Yeah, the networking is key. I remember speaking with another amazing session singer who, Gerald White.
Sure.
And Gerald, he said when he first moved to LA, he kind of just thought, hey, I've worked really hard at this. I can get myself in. And then he went, oh, wait a minute. I've really got a network. And he did the same thing of like showing up to events and showing up where these singers congregated and making himself known. And it really is, it's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. To be the pleasant person to be around is, it's, I do have a few people who ask me just randomly, they'll come up and be like, I really want to session sing. Could I talk to you sometime about that? And I think, sure. And then I think, well, what's missing here? Why am I feeling like, well, I'm busy now, so it's like, oh, I have to make time for this. But I think the thing that's missing is a little bit of mutual camaraderie. Like when you see them maybe on a gig or maybe 2 gigs or 3 gigs, and then you have like, you might see them over at the water cooler and they start to get more and more familiar. And then you have a rapport and a relationship. I especially think if you're out there networking, it is more impactful to make your move once somebody has familiarity with you a little bit. And then you can, because it starts to feel like work that you give away for free after you've helped so many people. You're like, oh my God, I have to give the same spiel. I used to email people and like a really nice long email of, giving all of my tricks of the trade and advice. And now I just say, let's go for coffee. And, hopefully they buy me the cup.
No,
like, at least I'm going to get a coffee out of this.
No, it's true. People look for shortcuts. And I remember a famous comedian talking about how someone would walk up to him in the airport and hand him a cassette tape. Hey, here's my comedy, thinking that he's going to help them leapfrog over all the steps that he had to go through and all the dues that he had to pay. And there's a lot to learn and gain from paying your dues.
Yeah, absolutely. Just being around the people as much as you can and doing the thing that somebody else would want to hire you for. I think that's another thing people sort of forget is they think there's, well, I'd really like to do session singing. So therefore, why don't you refer me or why don't you get me in there? But it's like, what would be even more awesome is if I heard you sing a solo recently in the concert we were in and was floored and was like, you don't even have to ask me. I'm going to go tell everyone about you and say, you killed, like this person killed this solo and they're amazing and I want them to sing with me. Like that's way better than somebody being like, well, I have all these accolades elsewhere, so how about you give me a shot? Anyway, it's interesting. As I like, the more I do, the longer I'm around and the longer I've been helping people, I do have a whole comparison on how it's all come at me, like the ranges of people who ask for help. There was somebody who emailed me from Chicago and was like, I saw your credit in a film and I looked you up. How do you get started? And I thought, that's really cool. Somebody took a lot of extra effort to find me. And so I emailed her this huge email and never heard back. And I was like, man, I have since copy pasted that when I get a new person asking me, I'm like, hey, you know what? Take some wisdom I sent someone else who never did anything with it, as far as I know, and never thanked me. And here you go. You can read this because, I'm passionate about helping people. I really am. But, you never know where someone else is at in their mind and in their career. Maybe just it was a fad for them and, they're over it now. I don't know.
I think it looks glamorous and it looks fun, but I don't think everyone realizes the the skill set that you have to have in order to do it. And you in particular, because session singers need to be versatile, but you expanded your versatility to the point where you were singing in styles that there are those who argue you shouldn't be singing both of those styles.
Oh yeah, that's another little secret that I would share is, if you have a serious teacher, I wonder if these people will ever watch this podcast.
Me being the not serious teacher.
Yeah. Well, a real straight up purist, as I would say, somebody they've made a life out of studying a very classical voice, and, they know the ins and outs of the mechanics and the instrument so well, and they've seen where it can go wrong and where people can really hurt themselves or, and I don't necessarily disagree, because I think that there are career opera singers, soloists, that they tour the world and they're singing in the biggest, most famous venues on the planet. And yes, they probably should not be belting, Celine Dion the next day.
I agree. If that's what you do, it's a completely different discipline, as you well know. Yeah. And I'm not trying to stake a flag, but it singing classical is a very high level discipline. Mm-hmm. And the aesthetics are so specific in a way, as opposed to pop, that singers need to be very careful going back and forth. So how were you able to manage to do both?
Well, my argument is that since I'm not that person that is a career opera soloist or classical soloist, is that the more I sing other styles, the better my classical instrument becomes. Like, my classical instrument almost becomes more pliable and more flexible, and I can get more colors out of it. And every classical piece that we do is a different composer. It's a different era that they wrote it in. It's got a different style. It's kind of different backgrounds that are coming in when they write it. And no same ensemble piece anyway in a choir is going to require the same timbre. So the more you play with singing pop, the more you understand that there are different traps in here that you can, start working. Like, instead of just like hinting at them with classical head voice, you can really like laser beam them when you attack them more with pop. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but I feel like you're really getting up in here and all the mechanics and maybe lifting a little more weight with pop singing. With classical, you can get away with just sort of keeping it really heady and not venturing too much into the mix. And like, I hear a lot of sopranos, and same with altos too. I can't really speak to the way the men's voices work, but with soprano, it's like, well, I'm useless from this note to this note in the staff. I can't generate enough sound because that's not where I live. But I think like the more I sung pop, the more I was like, well, I'm just going to bring in this other stuff, weighted in a different way. And I have literally gone on sessions as like alto too. In fact, I did I think somebody probably got sick and they needed a bass in a lady a cappella group. And I was singing like low E's and F's, like, and I was, hey, at the end of that session, I was not singing soprano notes. I'll tell you that. I was like, ooh, I don't have my high notes anymore. No, I'm talking like this. But it just was like, it didn't ruin me. It maybe ruined me for the rest of that day. But the next day, it actually it's like it adds another dimension to the things that come out, the colors. So I can sing regular alto notes in a choir and somebody would be like, oh, wow, you kind of sound like an alto. Like, you don't sound like a soprano faking it. And point being, the more variety you throw into what you're singing, I think the better off your instrument is. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and you have a great ability to sing contemporary in a really precise way. I mean, the thing I loved about working with you is because you had all this classical technique and you were so dialed into your voice that when I would have you lean into your voice, it didn't want to heavy up or grab, but yet you weren't afraid of it. That's the other thing. A lot of times classical singers, and look, this is well founded, especially for women. Contemporary singing can be more dangerous. I mean, you're asking your voice to come together with more intensity, and if you do it wrong, it can go off the rails pretty quick. But
Yeah.
do you feel also that your classical technique has really influenced how you're able to sing contemporary? Because you do it really well.
That's a tough one. I definitely I separate the two of them so much. I have different respects for both of them. What would I say? It's my classical influence. I would say that I have to work extra hard on shedding it when I walk into. Actually, true story. I was singing Carmina Burana in the morning, like very aggressive.
That'll wake you up.
But yeah, aggressive classical. And I'm thinking, like, I'm warmed up and I can now go to my next session, which all I knew was that I would be singing a Disney demo. So then I was thinking on my way there, like, all right, this will be, maybe it'll be like Ariel, or maybe, it'll probably be mixy, light musical theater. And I got there and it was an arrangement of Mulan, and it was like Reflection. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I didn't warm up at all for this. This is a major belty song. And I guess Leah Salonga.
Does that have a high E flat or F in it?
It's got a E flat, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
E or an E flat.
Yeah.
It might be an E. I think it's an E flat. But yeah, Leah Salonga, she has a nice mix, but it's this arrangement. It wasn't a Leah Salonga design. It was more of a Christina Aguilera design. And I was like, I can't sing a more mixy version. It's not working. Like, the vocal always needs to match the production of the track, I think, because they're done with that part. You're post-production. They're like, we've built the track and the track is the track. There's no like, we'll build it around your voice. So I started to sing and I just was not there. The placement was off. And no matter all the training I've had and all of the things that I try to remember, all my tricks, you could tell there was just too much managing going on. And I was getting a performance that was too safe. And it was more like in a classical way. We don't have to worry so much about how we would conversationally say something. And in pop, it's such a conversation. It's like, my dialogue in this song better come across in a way where I'm sitting across the table meaning something when I'm talking to you. And so if you don't have that attitude and that grit and that like bearing your soul and how you're saying this, like it just comes across more technical, like now I'm in my mix and now I need to bring the backup and now I need, all the things. So it was coming out badly and I just stopped and I said, hey, and he's a friend of mine. So I was like, I'm just not, this isn't happening. And I would love to go home and do this in a couple hours after I've warmed up, after I've gotten into character per se, like I need to just get into this zone. I didn't know I was coming in to like belt Christina Aguilera style and I'm not ready.
Yeah.
So that's
on the edge.
That was a day where I was like, classical it didn't help me today, because I just was not in the zone. But so I got home and it was hours later, and I'm always better later in the day, especially with pop stuff. So I got home and I killed it. It was like, people always say like on the way home from the gig, I sounded awesome. And at the gig, I wasn't that great, but I sounded great in the car on the way home. It was the same kind of thing. I was already ready to go almost when I pulled in the driveway. And I'm like, all right, now I can do this. And I sent it off and I was way more proud of. The other would have been fine, but every singer can relate. We don't love to have stuff out there with us just being okay. We want, if it's going to be out there forever, we want it to be good. So I was grateful to be able to come home and fix it. But yeah.
Yeah, and those are three completely different tunings of the voice, where you're going from classical, even though it's somewhat more aggressive, with Carmina Burana, and then you were singing in more that mixy style. But then what they needed was that really intense on the razor's edge. The vowels really start to open up. You're right on that verge of falling into that shout mechanism where you don't want to go, but you have to dance right on that razor's edge. And I think that's what really scares classical voice teachers, because they don't want their voice students going where you had to go, because if you do that wrong, that's where you can get into trouble.
Yes.
And that's what fascinates me about you, is you're able to go to that edge and stay there without falling off, and then go the next day and sing classical again.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, when I find that edge that you're talking about, I have so much fun, because that's where it becomes effortless. But for some reason, getting there doesn't always come naturally. I would say I can be a fraud a lot easier with classical singing in the capacity that I do it, which is go in and be part of an ensemble. And, I can have a not so great vocal day and still be part of an ensemble in classical music. And, it's if somebody yawns, ooh, it's that. So you can just stay kind of hooty all day long and get by. But man, nothing calls you on being a fraud like going in and doing a solo like reflection. Like, this is so specific for me. Like, and that's just my instrument. There's probably a lot of pop singers out there who are like, well, I live in the place where I could sing Milan like it's nothing, and that's my normal voice, so they would be fine. But for me, I do have to transition and really make conscious choices and decisions. But then once I get to the other side, then my voice is all, it's like, I just worked out for an hour, and now I'm ready to stretch even further than I could before, because I'm all, I'm warmed up, I'm limber now. So that's fun when we get to that point.
Yes. Yes, but to be fair, with your classical singing, I mean, watching you, I believe it was the Bach Mass that you were a soloist at Disney Hall.
Oh, you came to that.
And,
that's right.
I mean,
Aww.
I did, yeah. And you were absolutely spectacular. And obviously, these are all world-class singers, classical singers, and you were right up there with them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, your versatility is astounding.
Thank you. I have another similar recent story that I showed up to a gig thinking I was going to be more Andrew's Sisters-y, and I didn't know if I would be singing the top part, the middle part, or the bottom part. I'd been given the music a day ahead of time, and I saw it, and I thought, yeah, that's going to be where they want the trio of ladies to have a nice blend, like Andrew's Sisters. And then we get in there, and I'm on D's at the top of the staff because I was doing soprano, and it was not working as a mix. It wasn't popping enough. It had to be a belty, razor bladey D. But I thought of you because on one of my CDs of the lessons that we did, we were working on doing 1-3-5-3-1 with a pop tone, and you were like, you're cheating the threes on the way down. So it'd be like bum 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 bum, and then I would hit 5 really well, but then 3 on the way down was weak sauce because I was like, whatever in between. And who cares about that as long as I get that high note. And this tune, the way it went was like literally razor blade D and then like B G D B G, and I'd be like there was always this hold up in the middle where it was like, don't make me sing down, like that's hard to get like a nice perfectly blended mix. So thankfully we workshopped it a lot, and we had done takes at the beginning, and then we get to the second chorus and the third chorus. By the time we got to the third chorus, we had permission to really go like sing out. So we did the third chorus, and I let out the bright belty stuff. And they were like, I saw them in the booth and they were like, yes, that's what we want. So we went back and redid all the other stuff. And I was like, this is what happens. It's like an hour into it. Now I'm ready. Now I have all the coordination. Now I'm not cheating any weird notes. Like, I'm ready to go. And so they were so happy, and it was so fun to do the poppy stuff. Because it's an exploration of, attitude and, intention when you're singing. And I don't want to say that that's not so in classical, because there's definitely attitude and intention, but it's just so different. Yeah. You and I have had some in-depth conversations about pop being difficult in a way where it's, in my mind, I do think pop is really difficult. And I think when classical singers speak about it and they think, oh, it's just pop, like that's easy or whatever, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you're doing it right. If you think it's easy. It's definitely hard.
It's a high wire act when you're doing it. Yeah, it really is. Suzanne, where can people find out more about you?
Let's see. So IMDb hopefully has my most up-to-date list of credits. My website is just SuzanneWaters.com. That's probably, yeah. I think Master Chorale might have a little profile on me. That's where you could go. I have some videos up on YouTube.
Yeah.
I try to pull stuff that I've actually done and post it. And when it doesn't get pulled down for rights protections, it's still out there, and it says Suzanne Waters sings on whatever TV show for demo purposes only. And I've gotten to do some really fun stuff.
Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us. I love speaking with you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. This has been really fun.